I call this meeting to order. Please stand for a flag salute and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Roll call, please.
All right. Commissioner Morose?
Present.
Commissioner Pollock-Rude?
Present.
Commissioner Serco?
Present.
Commissioner Sotile?
Present.
And Commissioner Valles?
Present.
All commissioners present.
Thank you. Welcome to the El Cajon Planning Commission meeting. This meeting is being live streamed on the City of El Cajon website. Appeals of final decisions of the Planning Commission made this evening must be filed in writing with the city clerk before 5 p.m. Friday, December 16th, and must include the payment of a filing fee. If you wish to speak on either a non-agenda or agenda item tonight, please fill out a request to speak card located by the agenda and turn it into the secretary, who will call you up to speak when the agenda item comes up for public comment. We ask that you give us your name, spelling your last name. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. The display on the podium, as well as the other monitors in the chamber, will show time counting down. At 30 seconds, the podium clock readout will turn red, signifying you have 30 seconds until the end of your time. Applicants and individuals representing groups of people may be allowed more time if appropriate. All public hearing comments should be addressed to me as the chair of the commission and not to individual commissioners or staff members. Please turn off all electronic devices if you have not done so. Pursuant to City Council Resolution 114-79, a commissioner who has received evidence related to a matter before the Planning Commission other than an unescorted view of the subject property is required to disclose such information. At this time, we will take comment from any member of the public on any item of business within the jurisdiction of the Commission that is not on the agenda. Under state law, no action can be taken on items brought forward under public comment, except to refer it to staff for administration or place it on the future agenda. If there's anyone who wishes to address the Commission under public comment, please do so now. Great. Did you fill out a speaker card? I did not. Okay. And this is a non-agenda item. Come on down. Give us your name, spelling of your last name, if you don't mind.
An employee of SDG&E. I'm the liaison for SDG&E to the City of El Cajon, so I have worked with some of the staff members. And tonight, I am not here in my official capacity. I am here representing my ownership in the property for agenda item number 3, and that is all that I am here to do tonight.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else care to come down for public comment? All right, seeing that there's none, we'll move on to the consent calendar. A motion will cover all items on the consent calendar. Does the commission wish to pull any items on the consent?
No, sir.
Staff, do you wish to pull any items?
No changes from staff.
Okay, great.
I move to adopt the minutes as recorded.
All right,
I'll second.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Serco, seconded by Commissioner Valles. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Great. Okay. We will move to the first public hearing tonight. That is agenda item number 2. This is a zoning code update. It is a zoning code amendment. It is CEQA exempt, and staff recommendations is it goes on to City Council. Staff?
Great. Thank you. So again, this item is the 2022 zoning code update. So the scope of this year's update has been directed by the City Council, but then also approved by the Planning Commission at your most recent meeting. So tonight's request is ultimately the first of 2 planned updates, with the second portion anticipated coming forward in March, or I should say spring of 23. This update is primarily related to economic development and the implementation of the general plan housing element, including recent housing-related state laws. We've also included some other minor technical changes in order to improve clarity and consistency throughout the zoning code. So here I'm going to start with economic development. The first item, staff has received several inquiries related to alternative fuel vehicles, including the servicing of those vehicles, which are primarily related to diagnostic and computer-related activities. And so we wanted to look at the zoning code and make sure that we were prepared as we anticipate those types of uses continuing to increase. So as of right now, the zoning code does not define or establish separate requirements for these types of vehicles. Therefore, staff has proposed amending the land use table to include alternative fuel vehicles with other auto sales, and then to allow the storage, sales, and delivery, and as well as service and repair on industrial properties for these types of vehicles on properties that are greater than 20 acres in size. So what we're trying to do is to align this type of use to be consistent with internet-based business models that we're seeing be more typical these days. I wanted to equate it to something that you may be familiar with. So we were thinking of the example of Sears. So Sears used to have their appliance center out in the industrial zone, and they would primarily sell their appliances from the mall. So in a similar fashion, we would still have sales occurring in commercial zones, but then also allowing for storage and distribution through the industrial zone. The next item in the economic development category is a new zoning code chapter. It's proposed to allow development agreements. So this is really intended just to be an alternative process to accommodate major and unique developments with combinations of uses and modified development standards. So an example of a type of project that would require a development agreement could be something that's more time-based. So like if you had a mixed-use project where there was a commercial component and a residential component, but the developer wanted to defer the construction of that commercial component for a certain period of time. The development agreement is a mechanism that we could use to ensure the overall development of the project, but to make sure that it builds out in a fashion that meets both the developer's needs and the city's needs. The last item on the economic development portion is the definition, adding the definition of a biomedical office. This came out of some of the city council goal setting activities, and so we've added a definition for a biomedical office and then incorporated that into the land use code to be permitted in commercial zones and then also industrial zones. So the intent there is really just to kind of streamline that use and enable that use to come into the city without having to go through any extra zoning consistency reviews or other reviews that might be necessary. So the big portion of the zoning code update is really related to housing. The 2021 through 2029 housing element, as we reported recently, was approved by the state of California. And Program 14 of the housing element included numerous zoning code updates that were mandated by new state laws. And the housing element said that we would bring those forward within 1 year of housing element adoption and approval. So we're bringing those forward now for Program 14. Those include regulations for emergency shelters, adding low barrier navigation centers, transitional and supportive housing, density bonus, accessory dwelling units or ADUs, and then as well as objective design standards. So the ADU and design standards are, as I said, a significant portion of the update. Staff did complete these updates with the help of a consultant, and Mike DeLeon, our senior planner, worked on this project. He's going to tell you just a little bit more about the process.
Good evening, Honorable Commissioners. The objective design standards and accessory dwelling unit updates in the proposed zoning code amendment are funded through a California Department of Housing and Community Development grant. After a competitive process, the city selected Dudek Consulting to execute the project. In collaboration with Dudek, city staff were able to seek input and feedback from a working group of local developers and designers in the preparation of these regulations. For example, in early June, a workshop was held to review existing regulations and seek the perspective of the building community before initial draft standards were prepared. Later in October and November, the city made draft regulations available to the working group and provided an opportunity to comment directly on the draft. I'd like to thank those that participated, including Rania Saloom of New Vision Building and Design, Alan Austin of Austin & Associates, Karen Alves of City Ventures, Russ Haley of CityMark, and Dan Fetter of F&F Properties. I'd also like to thank Elizabeth Dixon from Dudek, who is in the audience. Dudek's efforts in developing the draft and its graphics were instrumental, and their heavy lifting enabled staff to bring the item forward at this time.
Great. Thanks, Mike. And then the last item that we had on the housing-related updates is related to SB 9 for urban lot splits. So that was a law that was approved by the governor after the preparation of the housing element. We chose to implement and bring forward those guidelines in conjunction with the new SB 9 law with this zoning code update as well. So lastly, on this slide, we've also included the miscellaneous items. There's two small items. So the first is looking at home-based businesses. We've had a couple inquiries where home-based business operators wanted to do music lessons or tutoring from their home. The existing home occupation permit regulations don't permit customers or clients coming to a place of business. And so being that this is a low-impact use in a residential zone and the way that things are kind of changing through state law for like micro-enterprise home kitchens and other uses, we propose kind of loosening up that standard so that music lessons and tutoring could be conducted from a home. And then the second item is the extension of the emergency housing pilot program through 2024. The amicus cabins have recently been completed, and they're soon to be occupied, if not occupied yet. The pilot program was intended to end in 2023, and so we want to make sure that there's an overall full calendar year for them to operate the program, and then we can monitor it and see how it's working, and then allow us to come back in 2024 to report on that pilot program and see if it should be extended further at that time. Oops. So that concludes staff's presentation. Our recommendation is to approve the zoning code amendment for those economic development updates, as well as the housing and minor technical changes, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you. Fellow commissioners, you've all reviewed it, I take it?
Yeah. I have a question regarding alternate fuels for vehicles. I noticed that the definition is that any other fuel except gasoline, which of course includes electricity, it includes LP gas and also natural gas. However, the direction that the city seems to be going is just specifically just electric, not the LP gas or the natural gas. Is that why is that so?
I think we were trying to be inclusive of all alternative vehicle types. There's a lot of new technology that's coming forward related to fuel cells and hydrogen and other items. And so in conjunction with economic development, our goal is typically to make sure that we're paving the way for those technologies to be able to come to the city so that we're a welcome partner to those, and that we've set forward an appropriate framework so that when they do come in the city, they can be compatible with surrounding properties and uses. But we weren't, so we were trying to be more inclusive and including anything that was non-gasoline powered.
I understand more inclusive. However, it seems that the direction is electricity only. That doesn't seem to be inclusive.
Well, the proposed zoning code change, it's just for any alternative vehicles. So it could be any of those alternative fuel types.
Okay, so if somebody wants to use LP fuel or
Yes.
natural gas, they can do so.
Correct.
Okay. The next one is regarding the provisional housing. I know we approved it about a year ago, or maybe longer than that, and it was going to be built at the church grounds. That has not been implemented yet. I thought that it was under functioning, but it has not. It seems like it just completed the housing or the cubicles for people to live in. Is that correct? My understanding.
Correct. So they recently completed all of the construction, and they received their final building permit approvals. I haven't been updated on whether or not individuals have moved in. I don't know if any of the planning commissioners are aware of that, but I knew that they were getting prepared to have individuals move in. And so, yes, it was just recently completed in the last month or so.
Okay.
I'm friends with Pastor Roland Slade over there, and he said he was doing interviews. I don't know if any of them have been occupied yet. That was in late October. They were starting to look at applicants for the housing. So I don't know if anybody moved in yet.
And then insofar as the collaborative regarding the economic improvement, when you say the word collaborative, you're talking about city and business coming together. In what way will the city be coming together with business? Are they investing, or are they just making rules and regulations which are more open to business to conduct business here in El Cajon?
Sure. So I think the Economic Development Initiative from the City Council was really to look at some of our zoning regulations and have those be ready and prepared for new types of businesses that may not have been anticipated. So our zoning ordinance, sometimes can be outdated and using of old terminology. As an example, like the land use table might have a listing for typewriter repair. So obviously there's not many businesses conducting typewriter repair anymore. And so this effort is, in conjunction with the analysis done by City Council, was looking at like the biomedical offices and the alternative fuel vehicles and looking at how we can have the zoning be ready so that when someone comes and says, we want to get a business license to operate this business in the city of El Cajon, we can say, great, we know where you can go and how you can operate, and we have those regulations in place, as opposing to being reactive and saying, well, we don't know, this doesn't fit our definition for a automobile, therefore you're going to have to go through this zoning consistency review, and then, it may or may not be appealed to the Planning Commission. So the intent really, when I say collaborative, it's more about it being anticipatory of the types of businesses that we envision wanting to come to the city.
Okay. So it's not collaborative in a financial sense, it's collaborative
Correct.
in a zoning sense.
Correct.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
I would like you to talk a little bit more about the development agreement. The summary and the zoning code that I read sounded, it's got a lot of words in there. It sounds like it's a parallel process to a regular planning development. Can you highlight what makes it different? You mentioned that if someone were to come forward with a plan for a mixed-use zone, someone might be building one component before the other. But I think we already do that in some cases. So what makes the development agreement different?
Well, I know specifically we didn't have an enabling process in the code to allow these types of agreements. And the main issue that I had seen as it relates to these types of agreements is really the deferral of certain items or conditions. They can be sometimes stipulated in the conditions of approval through a time metric, but this kind of gives us better legal authority to implement these types of agreements moving forward. So it's clearly spelled out as opposed to something that's just being listed in a condition of approval. We worked on this with the city attorney's office. Is there anything that you would want to add to that? Okay.
All right. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. At this time, we can open up to public hearing. Are there any speaker cards?
Not for this one.
Okay. All right. Seeing that there's no one that wants to come down, I make a motion to close public hearing.
I'll second.
Motion made by Commissioner Moreau, seconded by Commissioner Valles. Please vote.
Motion carries.
All right, so end of the year, time to update the zoning code again.
Yeah. I'll make a motion to adopt the next resolution in order recommending City Council approval of proposed zoning code amendment number ZCA 2022-0002.
Motion made by Commissioner Serco, seconded by Commissioner Pollock-Rude. Please vote. And
Motion carries.
motion carries. All right. are on to agenda item number 3. This is Greenfield Drive and East Main Street specific plan. It is CEQA exempt and recommends City Council approval. Staff?
Great, thank you. So again, this is a request to establish a specific plan in order to regulate future development of a vacant property at the southwest corner of Greenfield Drive and East Main Street. So I really want to emphasize for this action that there's no development is proposed. It's really just a regulatory mechanism that we're bringing forward. So here's an aerial map of the subject property shown in yellow. The overall site is about 25 acres in size, and this, in conjunction with some of those economic development activities from the City Council, was identified as the city's largest vacant site in a commercial corridor and one of special importance to the city because it's the last large available commercial property to be developed. So the current request was initiated by the City Council in June of 2022. And what they asked staff to do was bring forward a plan to ensure orderly development of this property in the future. So based on the current regulations for the property, it could be developed or certain types of building permits could be issued without input from surrounding property owners. So what the proposed specific plan will do is require the preparation of a comprehensive planning document prior to any development at the site. And that would include hearings with both the Planning Commission and City Council prior to anything being constructed or approved. So again, no development is proposed, no regulations are changing other than requiring those public hearings for any future development of this site. The one other question in conjunction with this that we had received, so the property is owned by the Kaiser Health Foundation. They had reached out to us and we asked for updates on any planned future development at the site. In conjunction with that, they had indicated to staff that they did not plan to take action on developing the site until 2035. So again, there's no development that's proposed in conjunction with this. We don't see anything coming forward, but what we really want to do is to make sure that any public or any future development of the property, including any outreach to surrounding property owners, does require hearings with the Planning Commission and the City Council. So ultimately, that's really all that the specific plan is for. So no development standards, no use changes, no general plan change, no zoning. Just merely to make sure that anything that happens in the future, all the property owners surrounding the site will get that public hearing notice and will have public hearings. So staff did receive 2 phone calls and 1 email in response to the public hearing notice for this item. We did provide 1 copy of an email on the dais for the planning commissioners. Overall, there were no objections that were received. People were supportive of making sure that there was orderly development of the site through a public hearing process and through input from the surrounding property owners. So staff's recommendation is to approve the specific plan, again, to ensure that the large-scale site is only developed after a comprehensive planning document is prepared. So that concludes staff's presentation.
Great. So question I have then is, without the specific plan, then they can develop by right. There's no public notice. There's no weighing in by the neighbors or the local community. It can just run roughshod, basically.
Right. So there's certain items under the zoning code that are permitted by right or approved by the director without going out for a public hearing notice. Those items could be brought forward as of right now. With this specific plan adoption, the specific plan itself says that you need to come forward with an overall project for the entire site, as opposed to potentially piecemealing it or having one portion of the site developed while we're leaving the others remaining vacant. So this would stop that from being able to be possible.
Great. Good. Thank you. Any other questions for staff?
So I recall, I don't know how long ago, this might have been 5 years ago or 10 years ago, Kaiser was saying that this was the 3rd hospital that they were going to build. So they decided not to do this one first, but they're going to do one in, I think, Chula Vista, and then one in Riverside, and then this one. This sounds like they're pushing it way back.
So essentially correct. The last application that was submitted was back in 2013 that Kaiser had submitted. They submitted plans, but then they ultimately withdrew those prior to any public hearings or meetings moving forward. So you're correct. It was about almost 10 years ago, about 9 years ago. What you described is similar to what was told to staff verbally, was that they had planned to move forward with a different location and then move forward in El Cajon. But after the project was withdrawn, there has been a few correspondence with Kaiser. They, in conjunction with the economic development initiatives from council, the city had reached out to Kaiser for updates in this past year, and that's when they advised staff that they didn't intend to take action until 2035.
Well, I hope that they can be encouraged to do something soon. I miss having a hospital in El Cajon. All right, thank you.
All right, any other questions for staff?
No.
All right. Well, at this time, let's open up public hearing. I take it we have some speaker cards.
Yes, we have 3 speaker cards.
Okay.
The first one from John Curtis.
Honorable Commissioners, my name is John Curtis, C-U-R-T-I-S. I live on the end of Savin Drive, directly across from that field that Kaiser bought, and I'm really interested in what's going on there, of course. And I do appreciate the fact that, I got my notes here, that you're not focusing on maximizing the economic potential of the property, but rather to ensure controls on the type of development will be made. I really appreciate that. In respect to the Planning Commission resolution, and I'm the one that sent the email. Specific Plan SP 20220004, I request the following comment be added to Section 8, Exhibit A, Proposed Specific Plan, Greenfield Drive and Main Street Specific Plan. Words to the effect is what I'd like to say. Words to the effect that any future development of this area must include an evaluation by at least 3 local reputable real estate agencies on the impact the proposed development will have on property values for the surrounding homeowners. Any proposed development which negatively impacts property values for the surrounding homeowners will not be approved. I say this based on a recent past zoning effort, or rezoning effort that was attempted on Tres Lomas. A 1-acre lot was trying to be developed into 5 houses vice 3. And a lot of work was put in by the developer and the planning community and everything, and it went all the way up to the city council. Is that right, city council? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one of the commissioners said, council members said, well, you know, guys, if this goes forward, it's going to negatively impact the homeowner values for everyone around it. And everyone else said, oh, we're not going to approve that. And all the effort those people put in, out the window. It was a wasted effort for a lot of people for a lot of times. And, you know, I feel for that developer guy. So why don't we just nip it in the bud? Why don't we just say it up front? You know, let's get that look first before you spend all this time and effort and spinning your wheels on, is this going to negatively impact homeowner values or not?
Right. Any questions?
I think the city attorney might handle that question.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking the same thing, but we'll wait. If there's no questions for the applicant, we'll ask the city attorney. Okay. So one thing I believe as planning commission, I think we can only deal with land use issues and not home values. And so is that wording allowed, Barbara?
That it's true. Consideration of impact on surrounding economic value cannot be considered. It's the orderly planned development that the Planning Commission is tasked with with considering, and not how it's going to affect surrounding properties.
However, that may not be the same for city council. That might be something that you want to bring up to the city council. They might have a little more latitude there.
I hate to say what city council would do, but the fact that surrounding properties would be positively or negatively impacted is not a consideration in planning decisions.
Okay.
So, if I may add just one thing, the overall intent of this plan is we call it a blank specific plan, and so that it's just setting up the process for the future. With all of our applications, we do issue for development applications a notice of application. And so in conjunction with the notice of application, any surrounding property owner that received that could submit a comment requesting, after evaluating the proposed scope of that new project in the future, requesting that the applicant provide that information to staff. So I would think that that would be one mechanism whereby it could be addressed in the future, and then that comment would be provided to the applicant at that time, and they could take that into consideration in conjunction with the development of their plan and any environmental document. I think because of the overall, because it's essentially a blank specific plan, I think the staff recommendation would be to just adopt it so that we have the process in place, and then in conjunction with any future application, those comments could be received, provided to staff, and given to the applicant, and then it could be evaluated based on whatever project scope may be proposed.
Okay. Does that make sense? So
I understand the law thing, which I was not aware of.
Right.
It just seems, to the uninitiated, incredible that development doesn't include a concept of what it does to us around it. And is there something, is that a law change we would have to make locally, or is it the state? Is it state law? That's a word I'm not familiar with, sorry.
Backyard.
Not my backyard.
Yeah,
Okay.
because there are a lot of different types of development that you can say, I don't want that in my backyard. I don't want that across my fence. And in our zoning ordinance, there's a lot of latitude for us to go, this doesn't fit, but we can't go money in one direction or another. Money is, we don't think about money. We're all in Star Trek right now. Yeah.
yeah,
We're all homeowners. We all do.
Yep. My home's right across the street on the 8. I'm on Bermuda Lane, right by the mobile. So I'm with you. So I believe what the time to weigh in on that is when a project comes forward, we then ask the applicant to provide the economic data through staff on what it's going to do to the result, to the other areas.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Okay. You bet.
Okay, the next speaker is Sarah Powers.
My name is Sarah Powers, Powers, and thank you, Commissioner Mraz, for enlightening me on a lot of those things that you just mentioned. But I have a question, which is, how does the specific plan that will be recommended and adopted encourage the economic development of the site that is most beneficial for the city? Is that, as opposed to the zoning and the development rights that are currently available to the property owner, how is a specific plan better in encouraging the development that is most beneficial?
Well, I'll defer to staff on that one.
So I think, as we alluded to in the earlier discussion, the current zoning allows certain things by right. So the site could be developed in kind of a piecemeal fashion. So a small project could be built at the corner. Someone could come in and propose another gas station at the corner or a different project, and it has to go through that process that's defined in the zoning code. And so what we're saying is that because of the overall size of the site being 25 acres and being a critical commercial asset for the city, that we want to make sure that there's orderly development of the entirety of the site. So we're thinking about points of access for providing fire service access and police being able to provide access to the site, and thinking about the site in its entirety. So I think the nuance between existing zoning and the specific plan is we're saying we want a comprehensive document that looks at all of those general plan goals and policies, as opposed to the limited framework that we have right now in zoning.
Right now, does that zoning allow 40 units per acre by right?
So the current zoning is office professional, and that's just a remnant of what was there in conjunction with the previous hospital.
Is that in the mixed-use overlay, though?
But yes, it is in the mixed-use overlay zone, and so they would be able to build housing on that site as of right now.
By right? Meaning no public way-in?
Correct. If
Correct.
they built something that met all of the standards and didn't exceed any thresholds. The one in the mixed-use overlay zone, you're allowed to build up to 40 dwelling units per acre. But and that's through an administrative process. But by going over 40 dwelling units, that changes the project into a conditional use permit. So there's a lot of structure to that section of the code. But essentially, the answer is yes.
Okay. So, long and short of it, this will protect us from waking up one day and seeing 40 units per acre by right on that property without any public notice, without anybody weighing in. This will allow this specific plan will mean they have to come with a whole plan on how to develop that property. Currently, it is owned by Kaiser. No one's developing that plan. But if Kaiser decides to sell it and no one knows that it's sold, and the next thing you know, we got 40 units per acre in an area that maybe shouldn't have 40 units per acre, or there was no weigh-in, this protects the public, protects the people on Tres Lomas, protects the people across the street from waking up one day and saying, hey, I wasn't even notified about it. And I think that's the biggest, I would say, plus to this, is that this will all go in front of the public.
Which I appreciate, of course.
Yeah.
So my takeaway here is obviously I can see 40 units per acre as being beneficial to the city because it pays for more property taxes, right? So my takeaway is hearing you say that you want to see that done comprehensively and coordinated per acre as a whole and not necessarily 25 acres worth of 40 units.
And they may not want any residential there. It may be more suited for commercial, right? It may be, and so, but either way, that's where the public gets to weigh in.
Right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You bet. Next speaker?
Yes, Dennis Weinreich.
Yeah.
All my queries have been answered.
Okay. All right. Well, any other questions? Well, at this time, we have no one else for public hearing, so why don't we first close public hearing? I make a motion to close public hearing.
I'll second.
All right. Motion made by Commissioner Moreau, seconded by Commissioner Vaez. Please vote.
Motion carries.
Okay.
I'd like to
Yes.
make a motion.
Sure.
I move to adopt the next resolution in order recommending City Council approval of the proposed CEQA exemption of specific plan number 2022-0004, subject to conditions.
Okay. Motion made by Commissioner Sotile, seconded by Commissioner Pollock-Rude. Please vote.
And motion carries by
Motion
unanimous
carries.
vote.
Yep. I don't know if I really want to see that place vacant for another 15 years, but, it'd be nice to see something happen there.
Well, it would be really nice to have a hospital. I mean, there's nothing from Grossmont till El Centro.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Kaiser is really specific, but still, it really is hard in East. I mean, as someone who works in a hospital, it's really hard, with people that live in East County being able to get emergency care and urgent care. I'll say more emergency care. If you've ever been in Grossmont Hospital's emergency room, take a lunch, take a dinner, take a blanket.
Oh, no. Last time I went to the emergency room, I dropped my wife off and I waited for 4 hours outside.
Oh, yes. And it's only going to be worse this respiratory season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, this item was joint noticed for the City Council on next Tuesday on December 13th.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. So, other items for consideration, staff. We have the calendar for 2023.
Yes, so this is the 2023 proposed Planning Commission calendar, and it follows the typical format that we've used in previous years. Due to the holidays, we proposed one meeting in January on the 17th, but the remainder of the dates are typical for our recent scheduling. So I believe we would just ask for a motion to approve the calendar if the Planning Commission sees that these dates are acceptable.
First and third. I'll second.
Was that you that made the motion? Okay. Motion made by Commissioner Pollock-Rude, seconded by Commissioner Circo. Please vote. All right. Do we have any other staff communication?
No additional staff communications.
Okay. How about you, commissioners?
I turned in my application.
All right.
Applied.
Good job. All right. Well, then I will make a motion to adjourn.
I will second.
All right. Motion made by Commissioner Moreau, seconded by Commissioner Circo. Please vote. All right. And motion carries.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Yeah. To everyone.